This is the Willis Twin Tower Show, right here on the Ballroom Network. We're here to rock and bring you the dirt. Tim and Jeff debating on the screen with the Podfather, although behind the scenes they say the Irish bring luck. All we know is the Packers suck. It's Friday night. Are you ready for the show? Talking about the Bears, Irish, and music. This thing's about to blow. You've been waiting for this night all week. It's time for the Twins to speak. So sit down in that chair. Let's give it up for the Bears.
Feels like game day, doesn't it?
Teams are all gritty, all hail the Windy City. The Twins aren't playing, it's on to go Super Saiyan. It's Friday night. Are you ready for the show? Talking about the Bears, Irish, and music. This thing's about to blow.
What's up, Bears fans? Welcome back. Sorry for the late start. Long story short, I had some stuff going on here at the house. But big story out today. There's some criticism about Caleb that came out. There's a story about it we'll get into a little bit, guys. There's some stuff from some former sources. Let's just put it that way. We'll give you guys our thoughts on it. We definitely want to know your thoughts on it as well. Come in, rip, roar, and ready to go with your questions, with your comments, anything you guys have that you want to say. Quick reminder, as always, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. We have tons of great content here at the Bar Room every single day of the week for you, right here in the middle of the season. It's a great time for us here on the network. So, like I said, all week long, we got stuff for you guys to see. But like I said, we got a bunch to talk about with this story tonight. Tim, do you have any initial thoughts? I see you guys in the chat are going crazy already right off the get-go about this thing. So, I'll say this right off the bat. I think that, how do I want to phrase this? The truth usually lies somewhere in the middle when things like this come out. I don't want to say anything is true or not true. I'm not going to say that anybody's lying or anybody is telling the truth even. All I'm going to say is the important thing to remember, guys, is this is a brand new team. It's a new year, new regime. That staff's gone. And everything we've heard so far from this staff, from Ben Johnson and everybody else, is that things are trending in the right direction right now. That things are looking like they're going the right way. So we'll dig into it more, obviously, in a little bit here. But, Tim, give me your initial thoughts. I just think it's important to note that, obviously, this is a new year here. We can't put too much emphasis on things that happened in the past anymore.
Let me answer it with this. Everybody see that? I still have support for my quarterback. Okay. Apologize for that. Now, I was debating tonight on what jersey I was going to wear because I wanted to wear a jersey since we play on Monday Night Football, and this is the last show before we play, or before our team plays, I should say. I'm not actually playing, thank God.
Thank
but
God.
You're an idiot.
I've seen you play football.
I'm a darn good football player, thank you. And regardless, in any case, we're not talking about us playing football right now. But when this whole thing came out today, this article by, I forget his name now, Todd or some nonsense.
Tyler Dunn,
thank you. That pretty much solidified it for me. I've got to wear my Caleb jersey. Now, I have a lot of thoughts on this article, okay? I'm actually going to pull up a tweet from our executive producer and the podfather, the man, Aldo. He summarized this article. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the summarization, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts on it, and then we'll back over to Jeff. Let me find it here. So this is based on this is a 3-part article on last season, okay? And this article is based on Caleb Williams. All right. So before I continue, I will say that this article, whatever you want to call it, we'll just continue with the article. This was based on sources, and those sources that he's claiming to have are former coaches, executives, and scouts from last season's team. Okay? So I'm going to give you this quick summary, and I'll give you my opinion from there. So Aldo's got this posted out for us, and it'll help us out a lot here. So I'll just give you the synopsis really quick. As a rookie, Caleb was coddled and allowed to, according to former Bears staffers and players, all anonymous, by the way, dumb down the offense because he would not put the work in to learn his mechanics. There were times he did not show up for meetings, and other times he'd behave petulant, sour. Players were upset with him, yet Bears coaches cooked the captain voting process to ensure a C was stitched on his chest. Williams would get play calls and stare at his wristband for seconds. Players in the huddle thought it was Waldron sending in plays late, but according to those anonymous sources, it was the rookie QB's fault. After the loss to New England, coaches wanted to give Tyson Bagent more snaps in practices and try to motivate Williams. DJ Moore and Mercedes Lewis were the ringleaders for a quarterback change. Ryan Poles nixed the idea and fired offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. Williams took no accountability. Thomas Brown was the anti-Waldron Eberflus. He implored the team to let Williams know when he screwed up. He himself led the charge by being tough on the entire team. Some players didn't respond well. Too little, too late. Sources say they suspect Williams has dyslexia and that Poles had access to the information before the draft. The offensive coaches were unaware. Brown confronted Poles about the suspicion. Was there negligence by Poles or simply a GM overlooking something important for Williams' teacher to know? A former assistant, quote unquote, we would have coached him differently. How much of this is true, we may never know, but for some of the dots connect. The hope for us Bears fans is that the issues of Williams' maturity and how he's been taught are now corrected. So, very, very well done, Aldo. Thank you for putting that tweet together. It was a very good summary of this article. Now, as you guys can see or hear from this, from what you just listened to, a lot of concerning things, okay? Now, that I'm not, like Jeff said, I'm not going to say what is or is not true. All that we can do is, based on the knowledge and the facts that we have, is give opinion based on that. Now, before the season, Greg Gabriel, our resident scout here at the Barrow Network, reported from the beginning that going into the draft, there were some concerns with Caleb Williams' personality, character, you name it, okay? And all of that last year didn't appear to be true, okay? Based on what we saw, there was nothing that said that he was that type of person, that he had poor character, that he wasn't a hard worker, all of those things. Well, now we're hearing that was in fact the case, that there were some issues and a lot of them. And it's like an entitled kid personality, a spoiled brat, if you will, or just I don't care attitude. And I'm going to summarize it myself now for you guys. And I'm going to go ahead and read something. So we are in this group chat, and there were a lot of opinions going back and forth in this group chat after this article came out. And instead of me trying to go through this with you guys and trying to give my opinion and be all over the place, I'm going to give you just what I said, so it'll be easier for me to tell you what my true feelings are. So I have a few reactions to this. First, if Ben Johnson saw the same behaviors from Caleb this article is referencing, then why would he have mentioned, or then he would have mentioned it by now? Ben has been very forthright and honest about everything so far. Very little coach speak, very refreshing. Secondly, if in fact Caleb exhibited these behaviors last year, maybe it was because Flus's ability to hire coaches, hold a standard, create a culture, etc., all were poor, and that's being generous. Not making excuses for Caleb, but when things are as dysfunctional as reports suggest, that would be beyond frustrating for any player, let alone a rookie quarterback who was brought in to be the franchise quarterback. With all the pressures linked to that, dysfunctions that cause failure is demoralizing, or dysfunction that cause failure is demoralizing. Lastly, maybe these sources, quote unquote, are just bitter former coaches, executives, and scouts who are making excuses for why they failed last season. It's easy to point the finger. How many of those coaches, executives, and scouts had teams banging on their doors to bring them onto their staffs? None of them were promoted. All that were hired were brought in either to a lesser role or equal in the new organization, at least the ones that we know of. Now, with that being said, there's also speculation and belief that this is just a hit piece. And if you guys don't know who Tyler Dunn is, he's a long-time Packers beat reporter, okay? So a lot of people believe that it's just a hit piece in his hate for the Bears. But if you've gone through here in the comments and read some of the things that Aldo said earlier, he's also been very critical of former Packers players like Aaron Rodgers during their time there and the issues he had with Mike McCarthy. So maybe this guy is just critical in general. Maybe it's not just because this is Bears news. I will say that the timing of this is really bad, considering that we are getting ready to play a game in 2 days. But the other part of this is, if you guys don't know this, Seth Wickersham's book is released next week. So my guess, and Aldo mentioned this in the comments earlier as well, he was probably just trying to beat Seth Wickersham to the punch, because a lot of this information that is being reported in this article will also be in this book. So before I go any further with this, and I hope you guys were able to understand where I was going with all that, and we're able to follow pretty clearly. But what is your response to this, Jeff? What do you, first of all, what was your initial reaction? And two, what do you think? Are my opinions justified, or is this something we should just move on from and not even worry about at this point? Or is this something that should merit our attention?
Well, to me, it's kind of what I said earlier. It's not, for whatever, I'm echoing and I don't know why.
Turn off the echo cancellation on.
Anyways, what I think is going on is somewhere in the middle here. You can't sit here and say that nothing in this article is true, like none of it ever happened. Like, there probably is some truth to some of it, but there's probably some exaggeration there too. Like you said earlier, Tim, the sources that Dunn mentions in the story are both former coaches and staff members, and also he said there were some that were still on staff, but I don't know how many there could be. And for one, that would kind of make you think a little bit, because some of the things that are said in this article, if some of the current staff members were saying it, that's not really in support of the current regime. So that wouldn't look too good. But if I had to guess, most of the things that were said about Ryan Poles and whatnot were from the past regime, from the past members that are no longer with the team anymore. Now, that being said, again, it probably is somewhere in between there. There probably is some truth to some of it. Now, look, you mentioned it earlier, Tim. I mean, Greg, last year before the draft, mentioned several times, our resident scout, if you guys don't know who I'm talking about, Greg Gabriel. He was in the NFL for 30 plus years, worked with the Bears as the personnel director for 9 of those years. He has ties to the league still. He still works for agents in the league, so he knows what's going on. Okay, he's still pretty tuned in with stuff, and he mentioned that he'd heard from some people that he knew and trusted that there were some things about Caleb as far as like the off the field stuff that were a little concerning, and a lot of people gave him a lot of flack for that, and he was just telling us what he had heard. Okay. Now, that being said, not only just that, and Barely, you're right. I mean, it was a house of dysfunction last year. There's no doubt about that. We'll get to that more, okay? I'm just we're just right now talking about Caleb's side of this, okay? The angle from Caleb's side, okay? Where the criticism is on his end. So, like I said, last year Greg mentioned multiple times, hey, there were some things that he heard, a little concerning. If you guys are familiar with the former, what was his title when he was with the Bears? He was the director of scouting, I believe, was his position. He was just underneath Ryan Pace in the hierarchy when he was here, Josh Lucas. And Josh Lucas was on, I can't remember what podcast he was on when he was talking about. He was making some appearances with some Chicago-based podcasts last year before the draft about certain players. He's now working with another team, I believe, so he doesn't do it anymore. But he was talking about some of the stuff that he'd heard about Caleb Williams that, quote, would have scared the shit out of him. So these things were out there. To say it wasn't out there at all, that's kind of, you either didn't know or you're lying to yourself. So if you didn't know, it was out there. There were some things out there to an extent. Okay. Now, that being said, I think people are a little hard on the kid, and I'll get to that more in a little bit too. He was obviously young and immature. I think it seems to me like he's come a long way since then from what we're seeing with the Bears now. Seems like he's embraced being here. He's embraced his coaching staff. It seems like, and again, the staff has said that he's doing the right things too. Everybody that comes out and says things about him, you can make the argument that, what else are they going to say? Well, sometimes you don't have to say certain things, but they do it anyways. So that should tell you that there's some faith there and some confidence there and some belief there and some good there. So that, again, now, immaturity. Now, you can make the argument because some guys, they come in, they're just ready to go. That's just how it is. You draft them number 1 overall. They're the kind of guy, they should be ready to go right away. They should be the kind of guy whose maturity level is where it needs to be and all that. And I'm not disagreeing with that. But I am saying he's a 22-year-old kid. So a lot of people in life mature slower than others, okay, mentally, emotionally, whatever the case may be. And he's obviously learning as time goes by. So again, I think we need to give him a little bit cut him a little bit of slack there. And I'll get back to that in a minute. But to go back to some of the criticisms again now, some of the things that were said was that, now I didn't read the full article by myself, but I did read the initial. He has a link to the post where he posted up on Twitter, the guy who wrote the article, Tyler Dunn. He made a post about this is what the story is going to be about kind of thing. And then there was a link to the article. So in the initial article, it kind of like gives you an idea what he's going to be writing about. And then there's a paywall to the actual article part. So I didn't read the whole thing, but from what I've pieced together, there were some criticisms about Caleb and the way he, I think it said there were some optional workouts that he skipped out on and some optional film sessions that he skipped out on, things of that nature. I don't know how true some of this stuff is or not. Okay. I also heard that in the article, a guy who was in the Bears scouting staff before, he was one of the, I believe he was the assistant director of pro scouting. Can't remember his name now. I want to say it was like Chad Smith or something. He also was on record saying that apparently the process that Poles took to identifying Caleb as the guy was not very, it wasn't very concise. I guess he would be a good word for it. He didn't really apparently kind of put all his eggs in Caleb's basket right away. And the guy kind of, the scout that was with the team at the time, he's with the Commanders now, obviously, who have Jaden Daniels. So that's not a real surprise that he's kind of trying to shove toothpaste back in the tube a little bit to say, hey, I kind of thought Jaden Daniels was the guy all along kind of thing, whether he did or not. Of course, he's going to say that now. He works for the fucking Commanders. Pardon my French. But in any case, J2K, there's something you said here too. I'm trying not to spend a ton of time on this, but at the same time, we do have to address what's going on here. J2K says something in here about like he believes that a lot of what's in the article is true, but he doesn't necessarily care about it. That's kind of where I'm at. I don't want to say I don't care because I do. Some of the stuff in there is a little concerning on both ends, both Caleb and the coaching staff. I mean, now, obviously, those coaches are gone now, so there's not much we can do about that anymore. Well, they did do something about it, which is a good thing. But as far as Caleb's end, some of the stuff that was said in there, I mean, hopefully that stuff's been corrected now, and he's kind of, on a different path with that and doing the right thing. Like I said, the coaches have all said that he's doing the right things. His teammates are saying the same thing. Matter of fact, I do have a clip I want to play for you guys real quick from the St. Brown Brothers podcast. This is a little unrelated. This actually happened like 2 days ago. So this was before this story even came out. Rome Odunze was on with the St. Brown Brothers, who, as you guys know, Amon-Ra plays for the Lions. Equanimeous used to play for the Bears for a short time. But they were kind of talking about Caleb. And I'll just show you guys the clip in itself because Amon-Ra has some points on this. And I think it was interesting coming from a division rival who would say this.
I know y'all got some trick plays up your sleeves. Like, I know what Ben's going to do. We all know that. But my question is, I want to know what's the biggest difference between last year and this year? Because all you know is really your rookie year and then Ben. So, like,
Right.
culture-wise, what do you feel like is way different?
Culture-wise, I would say honestly, just the nature in which like what the coaching staff says and it's translating to players. Honestly, the biggest thing, like, and it not being like kind of like a limbo of like what we're gonna do and like an unsure like kind of approach. I feel like with Ben, it's like, no, this is what we're gonna do. This is how we're gonna do it. Like, and if it's not getting done well enough, then we're gonna have to find something else to do it. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
I feel like that has been the biggest thing, and that like puts everybody in the mindset like, let me do my job like to perfection, because I know if I do that, everything's gonna be a well-rounded machine. So I think that's allowed everybody to kind of focus on their task. But yeah.
He still ain't know about, like, all the splits, everything.
Oh
huh?
yeah. Oh yeah, no, for sure. I think the first day we had like perfect plays. It was like OTAs. I went out there, and I had a +2 alignment, +2 to hash, where I lined up like +3. Bro was on me. I was like, damn, bro. I'm like a yard, maybe an inch away. He's like, nah, bro.
Yeah.
Run the whole playback. So nah, he's definitely honest about all those things. But you see where it carries into,
Right.
having a successful offense for sure.
That shit working. We be like, we be looking back sometimes. I feel like we were talking about stuff as a team. We're like, bro, Ben was really like super detailed, but that shit worked, bro. We scored a hella points. Like,
For sure.
we did it. Like, that shit you put into action and it should be working. So I'm
Nah,
excited to
for
watch
sure.
it, boys.
Okay,
That's
maybe I had
actually
one-
that's actually a good clip though to go into this too, because there's nothing in there. Rome is talking about last season and how there was uncertainty daily. They didn't know what the plan was. They didn't know what was going on. And what he's saying is with Ben, that's not an issue anymore. Everything is detailed and on point. And there is no making mistakes like that. You're going to learn from them, or you're going to keep doing it until it's right. Obviously, that wasn't a thing last year. And Rome was also a rookie last year. Now, before I go back to you, Jeff, because I know there was something you wanted to say, King Book of World made a really great point just a moment ago. He said if the staff was doing their jobs, then why did the locker room turn on them? Caleb talk him into it. And that's exactly what my thought process has been in this whole thing. None of the players, none of them said a word about Caleb.
Well,
Now, players,
supposedly, according to the article, there were some coaches and some players that wanted them to turn to Bajan, supposedly, from the article.
well, those players were DJ Moore and
Mercedes Lewis. was the other one
Mercedes
I-
Lewis. Yes. Two of the more veteran players. Now, how true that is, I don't know. And I could see that a little bit with Rome, or I'm sorry, with DJ. I feel like they have a good relationship, he and Caleb, but Rome is so hard to read. You don't know what really is on his mind. But the reason that I'm saying this because players are honest more often than coaches are, or about these things. They're gonna tell it like it is. If they've got a problem, they're gonna say it. And every player that we heard from, including DJ Moore, by the way, never once said a word about Caleb Williams. Everything was back on the coaching. Everything that they mentioned was about coaching. Every bad thing that they mentioned at all, every issue, every problem that they brought up in the media or elsewhere was all coaching related. The blow up after the not the Thanksgiving game, after the Washington game, I'm sorry, where the locker room went ballistic and Jalen Johnson led the scene. It was all against Matt Eberflus. The players weren't fighting with each other. They weren't attacking Caleb Williams. They were attacking the coaching staff. And so my point with all that is even if these things were true, like I mentioned earlier, even if it's true that Caleb had these issues and these behaviors, let's assume it's true. What rookie quarterback could walk into a situation like this with this coaching staff that they had, where it was all a total mess? Nobody knew what was going on. There was no accountability. Flus, from all intents and purposes, sounded like he was just aloof all the time. Like the guy was clueless about what to do with an entire team. There were obviously issues. And when there is dysfunction like that from the top down, nothing's going to work. And for players like Caleb and these veterans that were playing as well, that is stressful and it's frustrating because players want to win games. That's what they're there for. They want to go out there and win. And they felt like, and I felt like as a fan, they had a roster that was capable of winning. They had a playoff caliber roster. I felt that way last year. I truly did. That they had a playoff roster. Things had to go right. Yes, they didn't, clearly. But my point behind that is, if you have a roster that is that talented on paper, the coaching matters. And the coaching should have taken them to the next level and brought them to the playoffs. But because it was so bad, because it was so dysfunctional, the team fell flat on its face. And as a player, especially a young franchise rookie quarterback with a ton of pressure on him because he's the franchise quarterback, #1 overall pick, there's going to be some frustrations there. Like, what are we doing here? Like, I'm trying to win games, and none of this is beneficial to the growth of this team. Now, we don't know everything. Like I said, there's a lot reported in this article against Caleb, but there's also a lot reported by reporters about how bad the coaching staff was last year and all of the issues that we've heard about. So somewhere in between, like Jeff said earlier, somewhere in between is the truth in all this. But here's the thing. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care about it. All that I care about is this season. Now, if they lose this year, they don't win a lot of games, or everything is kind of a mess still, then this will come back. And it will be, then there will be some merit to all of this. But right now, I don't care. This is the past. This is a new regime. This is a new coaching staff, everything. They are in here to completely overhaul everything from last year. So if we have issues, then it's obviously there's a good possibility it's a Caleb and a Ryan Poles thing. But if they win games, who cares anymore?
Well, I don't want to spend a ton more time on this because we do have a game to preview here. But like I said, I do think it's somewhere in the middle here, you know, and Aldo said that very eloquently in a message to us all earlier too. And you kind of read off some of it earlier, Tim. But yeah, the whole point is, guys, is like, you know, again, like I said, the kid, when he first came in, were there some issues? I'm sure there were some issues with him. He, you know, we heard about the things. We heard about the stuff before the draft last year. Greg talked about some of it. We heard about it from other scouts and stuff on other shows. But the whole point is, you know, just because this stuff happened last year, just because there was some immaturity last year, doesn't mean that we need to just, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically call it a day and give it up and say, oh my God, this is never going to work out. Now we picked the wrong guy. It's done. We can just forget about it. Look, if you want to fan that way, that's fine with me, but I'm going to choose to have confidence that this staff has gotten it together, that they're doing it the right way, that they're giving the guys the hard coaching that they asked for, and it's going to work out. I'm going to put faith in the talent that the kid has shown on the field and that he's maturing enough. Excuse me. He's maturing enough to do the job on the field and to do it in a championship level and to be a professional and to grow from it. Now, is there some concern if the things in the article were true? Yeah. If some of the stuff in the article is true, of course it's concerning. But at the same time, like I said, we can either choose to sit here and say, oh my God, this is the end. We picked the wrong guy. This is a failure. Might as well stop watching football. Or we can choose to believe what's being said by, the new staff, the players, what they're talking about with the guy lately, and how everybody's talking about right now, how everybody's doing the right things, including Caleb. They're proud with the progress and all those things. So fine. Like I said, if you want to choose to think negatively and fan that way, that's fine. I'm not going to tell you how to fan, but I am going to choose to be optimistic about this and hope that it's going to go well. Now, I'm not going to say that it needs to be perfect right away, because it's not going to be perfect right away. I know it won't. But at the same time, I want it to be better. I want it to work out. Now, Joe, if it were a different position, he would be cut. He was the number 1 overall pick. He would not be cut if he was in a different position. I don't care what position it is. If you go number 1 overall, you're not getting cut. Now, you can criticize the process there all you want. That's totally understandable, and I would agree with that if that's the case. But that being said, at the same time, it's year 2. Let's see what he does in year 2. Most guys take their biggest jump from year 1 to year 2. Let's see if he both improves emotionally, physically, mentally, all of those things. I want to see him do it on the field, but also I want to see him navigate the professional football life like a professional as well, more so than he did in the past, maybe. I'm not saying it was terrible, some of the things he did, but there were some things that, you might not love as a fan, okay? And I can understand some of that criticism. But again, he's a young kid. He's 22-year-old kid, 23-year-old kid. So I'm going to choose to give him the benefit of the doubt, but give him a chance here. Let's see how the team does. If the team falls apart in the next couple of years, well, then they move on. I understand that. Then I'm going to continue to root on my team. But what's your point you're trying to say, Tim?
I just want to point out Erica's comment here, because this is an excellent point. Ben and staff said he's doing it right. His peers voted him captain this year. Enough said. Now, the reason I mentioned that is, yes, he was a captain. And in this article, it mentions that basically it was all cooked up and that the coaches basically not forced him being a captain, but they made it where he would be a captain. Like, not necessarily that his teammates voted him, and they didn't force him, but they forced it. So it's interesting that with only 5 captains this year, he was one of the 2 offensive players voted over guys like DJ Moore, over guys like Cole Kmet, over some of these other veterans. Caleb was voted in with Joe Tooney. You're passing up guys like Drew Dahlman, guys like Darnell Wright, Braxton Jones, players who have been here for several years now, and Caleb was the one that got voted in. So that means something to me. That tells me something right there, that obviously his teammates don't feel that way about him. They respect him and they like him as a player and as a leader. Why would they vote him a captain otherwise? Because Ben Johnson even mentioned in his press conference that this was voted in. The players voted on who they wanted to be the captains, and those were the 2 offensive players that had the votes. So I don't know how else to say this. Obviously, his teammates like him and respect him. And of course, there's always going to be some, nobody's ever going to get along with everybody. There's like 15 or 18 of us. I don't know what the number is now, like 18 of us at work. And there's like 4 or 5 I don't like. That's just the way it is. There's several of them that don't like me. That's part of life. You're not going to like everybody. Exactly. I can't stand you. We shared a womb and I don't like him. So that's my point in all this, is that there's always going to be somebody that isn't going to like you, and, they're going to have something to say about you. Maybe that is true that DJ and Mercedes Lewis were, pioneering for, Tyson Bagent to start, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it didn't happen, and Caleb was voted captain again by his teammates. So obviously this isn't an issue with the players anymore, if it was. So we just need to move on from this. It doesn't really matter, because guess what happens on Monday night, Jeff? We're here on Friday night talking about the Bears, and unfortunately talking about this story that's become a story, when in all actuality, what really matters is that our Chicago Bears play on Monday night. So that's what I care about. I want to see the Bears and the Vikings on Monday Night Football, and I want to see the Bears go out there and win by 20-plus points on Monday night. That's what I care about.
I would love to see that too, but I really don't want to see you ever do that again. So please,
Yeah.
I hope you don't engage. I hope you don't address your wrestling team that way when you get in front of them and you're trying to like get them ready to wrestle. Because
Have you been there? You've seen how I address the team.
I'm really just giving you a hard time, but
I know.
In all seriousness, though, well, yeah, who's not excited for this? This is what we've been all waiting for now. And there's been so much talk about this, and it's the hometown kid JJ McCarthy coming back to the Chicagoland area with the Vikings to play against the team he grew up rooting for. And there's a picture of him that's been going around social media.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Bears jersey when he was a kid. I think he's trick or treating or something. But anyways,
I believe so. He's Brian Urlacher.
It's going to be a big game, a huge game for us here. It's in Soldier Field, which is probably a good thing. Gives us an opportunity to start off at home. And, there's a lot of you guys in here talking about Dennis Allen and the rookie quarterback. He's basically a rookie quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, because he didn't play last year. He's hurt all season. So what I would tend to think in this game is that, just to kind of give you a quick idea of my thoughts on this before we really dig into this a little bit more, I do think that Dennis Allen is going to try to make this a very confusing game for JJ McCarthy, because he hasn't been in an NFL setting yet in a regular season game, and in a game where you're being matched up, or that's not the word I'm looking for, where you're being game planned against. So Scrolls, they probably will be handing the ball off a lot. McHandoff, he calls them. He probably will be running the football line. And look, it makes sense, because you know what? Aaron Jones has been a Bears killer for his entire career now, both when he was with the Packers and now since he's been with Minnesota. So it would make a lot of sense for them to get Aaron Jones the ball early and often. I very much anticipate that being the case. They will they'll definitely give McCarthy some chances, I think, to take some shots. I mean, if you're running the ball well, it's certainly going to open up the play action game, or at least if you're committed to it in general, it's going to open up the play action game. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. My guess is Dennis Allen is prepared for that, and they're going to be ready to rock and roll against the run game because they know what's coming. Whether or not they stop it or not is a different story. Now, again, knowing they've got a rookie quarterback, I'm sure they're going to give him some exotic looks. Not a rookie quarterback, but you guys know what I'm saying. They're going to give him some exotic looks. They're going to make it seem like they're doing one thing, and they'll probably show one thing pre-snap and go to another thing post-snap, rotating safeties and whatnot. I'm sure that'll be going on, trying to confuse the guy, give him some stuff he hasn't seen before. Why wouldn't you do that? So my guess is they'll try to do that. I would be shocked if he didn't turn the ball over somehow or another, either put the ball on the ground on a fumble or throw interception or a couple interceptions, whatever the case may be. I'd be shocked if he didn't turn the ball over, just because they're going to be coming after it. King Buka says, no, Terror Twins, according to some channels, sitting for a year and not playing any live rounds would be better than actual quarterback play and scheming. I'm sure there's some truth to that, King, with some guys, because it has worked out like that with some players in the past. Aaron Rodgers famously sat for like 3 years behind Brett Favre, and obviously Jordan Love sat for 3 years behind him. There's been other quarterbacks who sat behind guys.
Yeah, those guys were healthy, getting reps in practice. JJ McCarthy hasn't had any reps.
That's also true. I'll dig into that in just a second here, but I was just going to say that Patrick Mahomes is another guy that sat behind Alex Smith for almost the whole season. He sat all but 15 games, all but one game, I should say. He played the last game. He sat 15 of them watching Alex Smith play. So now, I mean, it's something where these guys, it's always going to be better to see things in play. That's how you learn best. You get the live bullets. Now, there's obviously some argument to be made about guys getting a chance to sit and not have to play right away. I don't think it's because you're not going to learn any better not being on the field necessarily, but it's because you don't have to get thrown into the fire right away. You don't have to get thrown into the wolves right away. You get a chance to learn without being under that kind of pressure right away. That's the whole point. Now, you still have to get under those live bullets and learn that way. So that still has to happen for guys. So either you have that ability to take that and play under that kind of pressure, or you don't, I guess would be the way to phrase that. But that being said, there is some truth to what you're saying here too, Tim. I mean, these guys have all had a chance to practice too, though. Those guys that were backups and sat behind guys for a year. JJ McCarthy hasn't even had an opportunity to practice until this season now because he was hurt all last year. So he had that torn meniscus. So that being said, I do anticipate they're going to put pressure on his ass. I mean, they're going to make things look difficult for him. So make things hard on him. Now, again, if I'm Minnesota, I'm trying to run the ball as much as possible because of that, especially when you have guys who can be effective in the run game against the Bears. They have been in the past. And I think Darisaw practiced in full today. He's their left tackle, so that's good for them if he's playing. So, again, that's, they're going to be looking to do that. I'm sure they're going to be looking to run the football. So that's the one key thing to me, offensively, defensively, in that regard, from the Bears' perspective. The Bears' perspective, anyways. I can't talk. They got to be keen on the run game and making things difficult on McCarthy. So I anticipate them bringing pressure, making things look exotic, and also. From the Bears' perspective, I want to get your thoughts on this too, Tim. From offensive side of the football, I anticipate the Bears are going to be running football too now because, again, you also want to try to take the pressure off your young quarterback and give him some easy throws as well. But, again, we're talking – Ben Johnson, I'm sure, is going to scheme some stuff up here in the passing game as well. Give him some stuff, some nice reads to look at and to make some throws on. I mean, there was, in that game against Buffalo in the preseason – now, obviously, it's the preseason. They played against mostly backups, but – Caleb was playing on time and looking pretty damn good doing so. So if they're going to give him some good plays here to run with and some good schemes, some good looks, scheme him open some stuff, then that's going to be a good thing as well. But I do anticipate them running the football. We know Ben Johnson likes to do that. There were times where he either threw a lot or ran a lot last year, and you didn't really necessarily know what was coming. So, but we do know he does like to run the football. So. If I had to guess, that would be what we're going to be seeing here is a heavy dosage of run game. And the only concern with that is how many healthy running backs are the Bears going to have for the roster. If I had to guess, DeAndre Swift is obviously playing Monday. Monangai has been limited in practice, but he looks like he's going to be a go. Roschon has not been practicing, so I would tend to doubt he's going to play. If I had to guess, they'll probably bring up Britton Brown from the practice squad for the game. So they have 3 healthy running backs on the roster. So, again, that's kind of what I'm looking at. Emphasis on running the football and emphasis on stopping the run game on defense would be my major keys. But what are your initial thoughts, Tim, before we kind of dig into more on what the chat thinks about the game and any questions they might want us to answer about it or anything really?
Well, my first thought in this is I don't see Kevin O'Connell treating J.J. McCarthy much differently than the way Jim Harbaugh treated J.J. McCarthy in Michigan. I think we're, like you mentioned a minute ago, I think we're going to see a heavy dose of Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason on Monday night. I think that's what the game plan is going to be for them, is to just run the ball. And let's face reality, the Minnesota Vikings, as well as the rest of the NFL, had their way running the ball against the Chicago Bears defense last year. So they're probably going to look at it the same way and say, obviously it's going to be different with Dennis Allen at the helm, but we're going to continue to try to run the ball against this team. So good possibility, not good possibility. I think it's likely at this point that they're going to try to take the pressure off their young quarterback and run the ball. And not just because of J.J. McCarthy, but because Justin Jefferson, I still don't think he's practiced. And if he has, it's been very limited because he's coming back from an injury. They're without Jordan Addison. They just had to sign trade for Adam Thielen because they're so diminished at wide receiver right now. They do have Hawkinson, but I think that with the receiving core they have, they're also going to try to take the pressure off in that regard by running the ball well. But to me, that's kind of the key to this game, is what the defense does against, especially that rushing attack in Minnesota. And as far as the offense goes, I'm really not that concerned with the offense. And the reason why is Number one, Caleb Williams had actually quite a bit of success against Brian Flores' defense last year. And we know that Ben Johnson has had success against Brian Flores' defense. In the 4 games he's played against him, he scored like nearly 200 points it's like 120 points or some astronomical number in 4 games against Brian Flores. The other part of this is they're going to have a plan in place for that pass rush in Minnesota. And that's the thing about that rush. Like, everybody wants to talk about this great defense of Brian Flores, and it is a great defense. But that's part of it. When you blitz like that, you're going to get burnt at least on occasion. You're going to get burnt at times when teams are able to get past your secondary. You're going to get burnt. So that's just part of it. And I think that Ben Johnson is going to scheme that up. We know he will. He's done it in the past in Detroit. I'm sure he's going to do it again here in Chicago. He's going to give his quarterback some easy looks. I'm not concerned about the offense being able to score. We'll just see how this defense holds up against that running attack. Because, like I said, Aaron Jones is a great running back. And he's, by the way, had incredible success against the Bears dating back to his time in Green Bay. He's been really, really good against the Bears. I mean, I cannot stand watching him play against the Bears. That's how bad it is. So we'll see where they go with that. But I don't like predicting, and I'm not going to predict, but I do feel very good about this game. I feel very good about the Bears' chances on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I think it should be a good game. I really think it'll be close. I think it's going to, like I said, I think it's going to come down to, I was kind of talking about this with some other people earlier. I really think it's going to come down to which young quarterback makes the least amount of mistakes. I think it's going to boil down to, like, if we can protect Caleb well enough, because they've got a good pass rush in Minnesota now. They got some guys who can get after it. And not only just that, but we have some situations sometimes where obviously Braxton Jones can be susceptible to some bull rush. So that's been the one question mark, is how well is he going to play this season? Ben Johnson wasn't exactly what's the word I'm looking for? He wasn't patting him on the back per se when he was talking about him being the starter, basically just saying he knows what to do. Is it perfect? No. But we think he's going to get better as the season goes on, is basically what he said. So I'm not super confident in Braxton Jones and his ability to, stop that bull rush, because he hasn't shown an ability to do it in his past. So I'm sure he's going to get beat some throughout the season. Whether they have an answer for that, whether they make a change there or not, remains to be seen. We'll have to wait and see. But that's the one concern I kind of have, is how well can our offensive line hold up against that pass rush. I mean, I'm not concerned at all about really Joe Tooney or even really Dahlman or Jonah Jackson. I think those guys will play well collectively, especially Tooney, and even Darnell Wright. But I do think that if they're going to get beat, it's going to be on the edges. And like I said, Van Ginkel, and gosh, I can't remember the other guy's name now. Who's the other big pass rusher they got in Minnesota?
Jonathan Grenard.
Grenard, yeah, another stud. I mean, those guys, that kind of does concern me a bit. If Caleb can stay upright and he can get rid of the ball and not hang on for too long, that will be a good thing to see, a positive thing. It'll give us a good chance, I think. So playing on time is going to be a big deal on Monday night for Caleb, because if he can do that, I think it's going to be really good for the Bears. Because again, we've talked about Brian Flores a lot in the past. This guy really likes to bring the pressure. So I'm hoping that they're going to have answers for that. I mean, Ben Johnson had success against him in Detroit. Now, obviously, that was a different team, different personnel. So we'll have to see if it's going to translate here with the Bears. But again, I do have faith that he's going to have some answers for him, because he's just – there's a reason that the Bears hired him. He's the best offensive play caller and play designer in the league, in my opinion. So we'll have to wait and see what he comes up with this week. But again, that's kind of what I think is going to happen. You're going to be looking at 2 quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, who can make the least amount of mistakes. If the Bears can keep him upright, Caleb that is, and he gets rid of the ball quickly, I think they're going to have success. If the Bears get pressure on J.J. McCarthy, I think they're going to have success. And I think that's the best way for the Bears to sneak out a W here. So we'll give you guys a quick prediction real quick. But if you have any questions for us in the chat, throw them in here. We're running out of time. We got to get out of here. There's another show coming on. And by the way, Aldo and Danikin from Bare Their Souls are going to be coming on at 9 o'clock Central Time to kind of go over that story again some more for you guys, so you get an idea of they're going to break it down further, because that, like I said, we didn't get a chance to read it. So they're going to really dig into it for you guys. As he's got on the screen here, 9 Central, 10 Eastern Time, Danikin and the Podfather will present Barroom Special, Trouble at Hallis. Hope you can join us live and share your thoughts. So it'll be a great time for you guys to get a chance to see exactly what was said in that article. But again, if you have any questions for us before we get out of here, please throw them in at us, and we'll do our best to address them. But just to give you a quick, we like to we know a lot of you guys like to hear predictions for games. So what's your point, Tim? Did you want to hear?
No, I was going to ask the chat. I just saw Erica post that was Carm's idea to have the CHO podcast. Now, I saw a clip today that was like, he said that the Bears are a 10-win team with Tyson, but there was a caption that said that he had said they were a 7-win team with Caleb. Is that accurate? Can everybody confirm that? Did he really say that? That they win 3 more games with Tyson Bagent? Please tell me that's not true.
I hope he didn't say that.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of wild. But
I did hear him say they're a 10-win team with somebody. I don't know if he was saying it was with Tyson or if he was saying it was with Caleb, but I did see he said they were a 10-win
By
team.
the way, CHGO did actually have the guy who wrote the article on today. So if you guys want to check that out, I saw some of it. I didn't see all of it, but they did do a good job of getting him on there and getting it straight out of the dragon's mouth, what he had to say about it. And again, he as I mentioned at the top of the show, guys, he didn't mince words. He said, a lot of these sources he had were people that were in the building before. So obviously those guys are going to have some access to grind, but we know that. I mean, again, I'm not saying any of it's not true. I'm just saying we have to consider all of the context here, not just the one side of it. So again, we'll have to wait and see. That was last year. I'm gonna look forward to this year and see what happens. But I'm hoping they got this thing turned around now. Finally, we'll have to. Again, we'll wait and see on Monday night. But to give you kind of idea what's going to happen for the game, what I told you guys what our thoughts were, what the kind of the X factors were and whatnot. But I do think the Bears will eke one out this week. I think it's going to be 27-24 Bears. I do think they're going to run the ball well, and I do think that Caleb's going to have a nice night as well. And the defense is going to have a good night too. I think they're going to do a good job containing the run game and holding Minnesota, because they're still a good football team. They're going to get theirs too, but I think they're going to do enough to get the job done 27-24. What do you think, Tim? You're muted, by the way.
I was going to say that I apologize. I was going to say if the over-under was 6.5, I would take the over on the Bears. I think it's going to be a little more. I don't know if it's going to be like a low scoring like J2K says here, but I do think the Bears should win by I think they can win by 10, if not more. I think they should. I really do. For all intents and purposes, they're playing a rookie quarterback who has never seen a snap in the NFL. Like, if you can't put pressure on that kid, then there's a problem. So I see scrolls here. I see 34-17. I don't necessarily know that they'll win by 17, but I could see 24.
It wouldn't shock me, but
it wouldn't shock me. I could see 24-17. I could see 31-17. I do see them scoring on this.
It wouldn't shock me if they put together an offensive performance like that, because it is Ben Johnson's first game. I'm sure he's going to want to pull out some stops. I'm sure they're going to want to have success and rock and roll. But so it wasn't surprising. But I do think, Minnesota is just a good football team, so I do think they're going to keep it close. But I do think the Bears will get it done at home. I hope so. Fuck, pardon my language, but I really do hope so. But there's a couple questions in here I want to get to. Let's see if I can find them here. J2K, this is a good one here. What are some key matchups for this game? I'll give you a couple of them right off the bat. The first and obvious one is going to be our tackles against their pass rush. Mm-hmm. So Greenard and Van Ginkel against Darnell Wright and Braxton Jones. And I think our running backs are going to have part to do with this too. And obviously our interior guys, because they're all going to work together on this. But I'm going to be interested to see. I told you guys about this a long time ago. The first time Kyle Monungai gets in there on a third down and he gets in there and sticks his nose in blitz pickup on Andrew Van Ginkel, everybody's going to love him and want to see him on third down all the time. So I'm excited to see what they do. Who's the guy they've got in there on third down for those situations? But some key, those are the main key matchups to me is our tackles against their edge rushers. My eyes will definitely be on that. And also our defensive line against their offensive line, because Christian Darrisaw is a damn good player too. So can Montez Sweat get pressure on him? Can Dennis Allen find a way to get pressure on their offensive line to make it work against to put the pressure on the rookie quarterback, I should say. So it's another key thing. And then again, the other part of that defensive line, offensive line matchup is stopping the run game. So I think that's going to be a big part of it too. Can the defense stop the run? How is our defensive line going to look against their offensive line, and how are our tackles going to look against their edge rushers? Those are going to be the key matchups to me, outside of the obvious ones, which are like if JJ plays against Justin Jefferson, are they going to shadow? Is he going to shadow him when he's on the field? And also, from our perspective, their corners against our receivers as well, because that's going to be a key matchup also. So that's the main ones to me is offensive, defensive line, but also, the wide receiver and secondary matchups are important too. What do you think, Tim?
One matchup, and I think the big one of the game, is Jalen Johnson and Justin Jefferson, because neither one of them has been healthy to this point. And Justin Jefferson, clearly the best player on the Minnesota Vikings. And you could make an argument that Jalen Johnson is the best player on the Bears. So how does that back and forth go? In the past, Jalen Johnson has had the upper hand against Justin Jefferson, and it's really not been close. He's pretty much dominated him over the last couple of seasons when they've matched up. So that's going to be interesting to me with neither one of them being healthy at the moment. We'll see what happens there. And my other one is not so much a matchup, but it's the Minnesota run game versus Andrew Billings, because without Billings last year, this run defense was really bad. So are we going to see that difference? Are we going to see an uptick in run defense with Andrew Billings back? We'll see. That's the biggest thing that I want to see this year from last year is the addition of Andrew Billings back to this defensive line room. So we'll see what happens there.
That's why I kind of mentioned that
last year. Absolutely by Aaron Jones.
Yeah. Again, the defensive line, I said before, that run defense. And J2K, you mentioned a good matchup in there too, Colston Lovely against their linebackers. For sure. I mean, because I'm sure they're going to try to get him involved right away. He's the first round draft pick, top 10 pick. They're going to want to get him the football.
I got one more. Caleb Williams versus Harrison Smith, the offensive play caller the offensive huddle caller versus the defensive play caller. So, and he mentioned it
in practice. I'm not sure if he's going to play or not, Harrison Smith.
I'm not sure, but Caleb did make it a point to mention Harrison Smith in his press conference yesterday about that's somebody that he's got to watch out for. Harrison Smith being a very savvy veteran, Notre Dame grad, by the way.
And Steve, you're right. We're not going to have any more words after Monday. Football season is here now. What happens on the field that's the reality now. So that's how it happens every single season. So I agree with you. But again, there's a lot of talk. There's still a lot of talking points to be had about what's going to happen here. So it's just what we may anticipate seeing or not. But again, you're right. There's not going to be any more smoke anymore after Monday. It's all reality now. So. And Cliff, that, like I said, the interior D line against the running backs, it's kind of part of that run game, right? So I agree with that. I think that's going to be a big part of the matchup. And the last question we had, this is another one. There's another question here, but Shorty was asking if your mustache was fake, Tim. Unfortunately, it's not, Shorty. I wish you would shave that thing off, but it's real. Slick, this is a pretty good question here. Do you think that Poles should be held accountable for not getting a functional left tackle? Eventually, he will be held accountable for that. Because if they can't get the position figured out, it could lose him his job, because that wouldn't be the only thing that lost him his job. But if they can't get that figured out and they can't get, the offense to function the way it needs to because they got a liability left tackle, that could lose him his job. I don't think that's going to be the case. And J2K mentions Josh Simmons looking good so far in his first game. And we know you liked him last year, J2K.
Hey, and O'Marion Hampton's looking good too. I liked Hampton.
Yeah, And I'm like I said, I liked him too. I liked Simmons as well. Just the injury is what kind of worried me about him. And Bears having a top 10 pick there, that was the concern to me, as taking a guy that's coming off injury. But he's obviously playing in week 1. So, that is, you have an argument there, obviously. So now we'll have to wait and see what Loveland does. Obviously, you're the one who did just now said something about the Loveland against the linebackers. So you're obviously interested to see that as well. So I'm curious to see how our first round pick plays. But at the same time, I do think it's interesting that we're at the point we are with the left tackle position still not figured out. But
maybe it is. Maybe it is figured out. We just don't see it yet. Maybe
not in this moment.
Maybe,
that's the point.
Well, I understand, but we're talking about the left tackle position. By the end of the season, if it's not figured out, he will be held accountable. Yes, but maybe it's figured out. Maybe they know who it's going to be, and it's just not. We just don't know yet. But like I've said before, I think it's Ozzie. I think he's going to be the long-term solution. It's a wait and see, though.
There's a lot of people in the fan base that are already done with him because he's not the starter already. But this is
nonsense.
It's just, we should know by now that it doesn't always
happen. What good teams do. How many times do we see the Philadelphia Eagles taking offensive and defensive linemen in the first and second round?
That's the thing,
and they rotate in or they don't start.
That's the thing I will argue, though, is that the Bears haven't taken enough swings like that, like the Eagles do.
They haven't.
Other teams do. And I want to see the Bears taking more shots at premium talent in the offensive and defensive lines in the early rounds. How many first-round picks have the Bears used on an offensive lineman?
Besides one.
How many first-round picks have the Bears used on a defensive lineman?
None.
Try a big fat 0 in this regime. That's a concern to me. You have invested 1 first-round pick on a trench player. 1. How many second-round picks
they've had 3, and they've used them all on offensive skill positions.
How many second-round picks have they invested in trench players?
2?
It was 1 before this year.
It was Dexter?
Dexter was the only one before this year, if I'm not mistaken.
You might be right.
This year they drafted Turner and Trapillo. But outside of that, they hadn't any. So that bothers me. I understand going after the skill players. I love skill players as much as the next guy. Matter of fact, I was just telling Tim the other day, if I have a knack for scouting a single position, it's probably the wide receiver position. I do feel like I'm pretty good at it. But they should be taking swings at these guys. Take swings at the offensive and defensive linemen, because that's where we need to get better, and that's where the other teams who are championship level teams are investing their capital. So that's the one argument I would make, and I would agree with you on that one. Slick, do you want to add anything to that, Tim, before we get out of here? Because we are running out of time.
No, you make as much as it pains me to say it, you make a great point. They have not spent very many top 2 round picks. I don't know how else to say it. They haven't spent any day 1 or day 2 picks on, except for, third rounders, on the lines. And that is concerning to me. Very concerning.
I still like to pick 2 scrolls for Loveland. I didn't dislike that pick. I was kind of clamoring for edge rusher, but I have been for 2 years now. But at the same time, I didn't mind the Loveland pick. It was a bit surprising to me when it happened, but I don't mind it. It's another weapon, and I think he's going to be dynamic. So that's why I'm waiting to see what happens with him. But I kind of tend to agree with you, Aldo. I think our left tackle might be playing on Saturdays right now. We'll have to wait and see. It might be a guy they're going to be drafting next year in the first round. So we'll wait and see. But we got to get out of here, guys. We're out of time. It's a great show tonight. We appreciate you guys being here as always. A quick reminder, like I said earlier, Aldo and Danikin are doing that show at 9 o'clock to go back over that story that came out today. They're calling it Trouble at Hallis. So join us at 9 o'clock for that show, and they'll dig into that some and give you guys a better idea of what actually happened in that story. You can email us, as always, as I've mentioned before, we're Willis Twin Towers Podcast at gmail.com. If you guys want us to get into anything here on the show, any questions you have for us, any topics you want us to discuss, anything at all that you guys might have suggestions about, please feel free to send us an email about that. This is a pretty funny quote. I don't dislike Tyson Bagent. I'm not sure if you're saying that to be cheeky right now, but I don't dislike Tyson. I do like Tyson. Matter of fact, I think he's one of the better backups in the league. But I think my favorite quote I've ever said on this show is that nobody knows shit. So I'm going to continue to say that and agree with that. But in any case, guys, thanks for being here. Like I said, as always, we appreciate you guys being here as always. Reminder is, like I said, to please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Get all the great content here on the Bar Room. And until next Friday, we'll see you guys next week. Bear down, and let's go on Sunday.
Da Bears.
This is the journey that will never end. New and mightier foes will arise. New adventures will begin. Until then, we bid you farewell.
The Willis Twin Towers podcast is a barroom production. Jeff and Tim Willis are the producers and co-hosts. Aldo Gandia is the director and executive producer. The opening theme music was produced by Tim Willis. Any copywritten material used was under the Fair Use Act for commentary, criticism, and news reporting. This show is also available in audio-only format and can be found wherever you download podcasts. Just search for Barroom Network.